I'm pitching to Del Rey has that same kind of thing. I had to create a situation that is really strongly secure, and I had to make it as secure as I can, Star Wars type thing, and now I've got to find a way to get into it. So there's always the fear that you will set yourself up a back door without realizing it, and so it looks really good to you and somebody will catch you at it.
Yeah.
But you do your best to set up the problem as tightly as you can and then try to think of a way around it.
And sometimes the reverse will happen, and you will set up a problem and then do some hand waving over your outline, and then later point and say, and Joe figures out the problem from chapter 3, but you haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And at a certain point you go, oh my God, I am painting myself into such a corner.
That's where you hope your subconscious is working overtime.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I have no idea how I'm going to, I've done that in outlines. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to get exactly through this. I've got a scenario. It's not, I know it's not the best, but it'll do for the moment. I can always fall back on it if I can't come up with something better, but I hope I do.
But I was mentioning the portions of the brain that are always working. One of them is a problem-solving portion of the brain, and there have been innumerable times when I've gone to bed wrestling with a problem and awakened with the answer.
Yeah.
Because that part of the brain is still working, even when I'm trying to sleep, damn it.
Interestingly enough, also, I've read that you do your fastest thinking standing up and your best thinking lying down, which is why business meetings and such are seated. It's a compromised position.
Sounds like a premise for a porn novel, though.
Well, it may, but it actually works for me. I've discovered with phone interviews, I cannot sit during them. I have to pace because I need to think fast.
Right.
If I'm stuck with one of these problems, I will go lie down, stare at the ceiling, have a cat come probably about here, purr into my face.
Yeah.
Lunchtime yet? That's what they're always asking, is it lunchtime?
Pretty
yet?
much.
And I can often work through the problem that way. If not, I'll fall asleep, and then I get a second chance to work through the problem.
Plus the cat doesn't leave, so.
Yeah, there's that.
Which Star Wars films are you guys' favorite and why?
I'm sorry, which?
Which Star Wars films are you guys' favorites and why?
What's your favorite?
Well, my favorite, and the favorite of most writers I've told over the years, although there are some variation, is Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And the primary reason is that it has the most significant plot development and the only significant character development of the original trilogy. Plus, it was partially written by one of the classic writers of science fiction, Lee Brackett.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's where Lucas set his high bar. But there are things in all the movies that are worthwhile. It's just some of them are buried harder than others. We won't go there because we still have the Lucasfilm implants. In fact, one of my favorite subtle bits is from Return of the Jedi, where right after Luke has defeated Vader, what does Luke's strength come from? Vader's threat to his sister. What does the Emperor say? Your hate has made you powerful. He missed it completely because he doesn't understand love. So it never occurs to him. And there's just a nice subtle little touch there. And there are little gems to be gleaned throughout the whole series. It makes it a joy to watch.
Tim, you said in a Facebook Q&A that you didn't like the idea of a novel where the big three sort of go out in a spectacular, dramatic fashion, that you didn't see that as the best way to sort of either resolve them or just eventually stop dealing with them. I'm curious, Aaron, do you share that view, or how do you think that the last novel that's ever written about them should be handled, or how their eventual fate should be handled?
I have mixed feelings about the quote-unquote last story of any or all of the big three, and the realistic part of my head says that having them go out together is a contrivance rather than a logical consequence of who they are and what they do. It seems much more likely from a realistic point of view that they're going to die separately. Luke will probably be first, logically, or maybe Han, because Han does not have any Force powers. But I just do not emotionally feel them going out together. That seems too pat, too cut and dried, too very forced. But that maybe just me.
I just don't like seeing people I've invested a lot of emotional energy in get killed anyway. I No, seriously, I mean, it's especially Star Wars. My take on Star Wars was that if secondary or primary characters were to die, Han, Lando, or Wedge would have died in Return of the Jedi. The fact they don't tells me this is not a movie about killing off all your major characters in even heroic ways. It's a movie about threats, danger, skin of the teeth escapes, but we're all going to get through it.
This is not George R.R. Martin's Star Wars.
Or Battlestar Galactica's Star Wars.
Right.
Or Joss Whedon's Star Wars. Do not get me started on Joss Whedon. And I agree, logically, the deaths, if there's going to be a death, it has to mean something. It has to be useful, worthwhile. And Sherlock Holmes never died on camera. He went off and studied beekeeping. You don't have to kill off the major three.
Yeah.
You can just retire them and no, we're not going to come back. Maybe go and occasionally consult with them, but we're not going to be in the action. Just make that clear. You don't have to kill them off.
Yeah, what I find is kind of entertaining is the fans who say, well, why do you keep torturing these characters? We'd like to see them have a happy ending. And when's the next novel?
It's Star Wars, not Star retirement benefits.
You cannot have a series of novels with Han, Luke, and Leia sitting around on the patio drinking lemonade and chatting about old times. If you're going to have novels about them, they're going to be at least advising people who are in danger. There will be tragedy,
There was a commercial many years ago for I think it may have been a satellite TV system or something when they were first getting started. It shows the young couple on the couch watching TV, and it's a shipboard romance, and the couple on the screen are gazing into each other's eyes. You cut back to the couple on the couch, and she's just kind of dreamy-eyed looking at it, and he's looking bored. And then on this TV screen, we pull back and we see the submarine periscope heading toward the ship. And suddenly he's interested again.
Yeah.
I always liked that. You've got to balance all these things, and you've got to have the action adventure. And sitting around drinking lemonade would be nice for a couple of days. Was that picture of Jack Bauer saying, "Why can't I have just one good day?" For 24.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if Lucasfilm's ever going to kill them off, or whether just kind of let them go quietly into retirement. I do know I do not want to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
Back there.
Speaking of that, with Luke and Han and Leia getting older, do you think that there's much of Luke's story left to tell? And if Lucasfilm decided to reboot the Star Wars EU after Return of the Jedi, would you guys want to be part of a reboot, or would you want other people to handle that?
A reboot would be really, really messy. There are currently 140 odd adult novels alone, not counting children's, young adults, art books, schematics and all that. 140 adult novels. To just say, okay, we're going to wipe those out, especially since many of them are still on the bookshelves, or bookstore shelves. What are you going to do? Are you going to say all these, we're going to stop selling them? Del Rey would not like that. Bantam would not like that. The publishing industry is taking enough of a hit these days as it is. A reboot would be immensely hard to do.
The thing about reboots, we've seen two arenas in which reboots are fairly successful. One is comic book universes, and one is TV series. Comic book universes work because largely comic book sales are generational. I mean, most people will read comic books for a span of years from their childhood to, say, that when they get to college. People who come to an event like this, to Star Wars Fan Days, are exceptions. You have to remember that you are not the kind of people I'm talking about. But the large audience are, in fact, people who read them until they're in college age and then stop. So a generational reboot works. A TV series reboot works because 10, 15, 20 years after the series is dead, you have a new generation of viewers. Battlestar Galactica worked that way. The original series premiered in 1978. And by the time the new series was done, that generation was in its 40s and had fond memories that were pretty vague of what that original series was like. I'm one of them. But the Star Wars universe is being actively maintained by a readership and a fan base that is vitally interested in what's going on, and so there would be immense pressure not to reboot. Now, the other part of your question, yeah, there's plenty of Luke story to tell if you're thinking of Luke as a human being. Every writer who deals with a character like Luke Skywalker, in order to write him convincingly, has to find some corner, some new area of that character and make it his own. With the writers of the current series, it has been Luke Skywalker, Dad. I mean, that's something that was not part of Luke at the time of A New Hope or for many years after. But by the point you got to New Jedi Order, yeah, he was a father, but he wasn't a dad because he was off doing stuff that the galaxy depended on him. Now he's touring with his son. Now he's a single father. He is Dad, and this is a new role for him. And so that's one big important thing that we can explore that no set of writers have had the opportunity to do previously. And that kind of thing can happen with each new era and each new series. Luke Dad, that's cool. Then there's going to be Luke Granddad at some point. You know, Luke this, Luke that. You find a thing that is for you to deal with, and that will be part of the new element of his story. So yes.
Do you each have a particular story or project you would like to do or would have liked to do that just never got off the ground or got shut down or something like that? And if so, what would that project be?
I had a couple. One of them was a series of novels that I pitched shortly after the conclusion of the prequel trilogy. It would have been around mid 2005. I started pitching. I called it The Dark Path, and it would have been the events of the original trilogy retold from the perspective of Darth Vader as we now knew him to be. It might have been 2 novels, it might have been 3, but it would have been all from his perspective. The tragic character locked in that armor, beginning to become alive again, so he could emotionally reach the point he was at the end of Return of the Jedi, where he saved his son. I thought that would have been interesting. I also had one where I wanted to do a novel about Han and Leia very, very early in their marriage, with a fairly insecure Han coming around to the notion of the role he could play in her life, because she was a much more important person in the galaxy than he was. And to have someone like Han with his very unusual ego structure having to deal with that would have been fascinating to me as a novelist. However, that era was I never got the opportunity to do that. Actually, I did. I had the opportunity to do that or Starfighters of Adimar. And I chose Starfighters of Adimar, and by the time that it came up again, Troy Denning had Tatooine Ghost, that kind of covered the same era, and it just did not allow for the presence of my novel. So those were the two great projects that I've had to say goodbye to.
When did you pitch the Vader thing? How recently?
It was mid 2005.
Might be worth repitching it.
You think so?
I think so.
Yes.
Especially with Clone Wars and the extra attention Anakin is getting.
Well, I will write Del Rey then and say Star Wars fan has told me to do it.
Yeah. No, seriously, I think that would be could be a very interesting series. Now I quickly write Shelley and tell her I want to do it first.
Tell them you have a room full of pre-orders.
No, that would be interesting to do. I have not yet run into that problem. I've got 3 or 4, maybe 5 ideas. If you take the suggestions from my Facebook page, I've got about 20 for books.